Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as ever by our Blues reporter and my colleague Alex Dicken, who is happy to report that contrary to some suggestions last week, the world did not come crashing to an end. Birmingham City have registered 2 home victories since that night in Bolton, and all's well with the world, isn't it, Alex? Hello again.
Yeah, hello. I listened to that podcast, Brian. It wasn't as upbeat as the headline of the podcast, or the title of the podcast would suggest, to be fair. But it was a good listen nonetheless.
No, we did spend a lot of time moaning about the goals that conceded, didn't we? And ultimately, the theme of the episode was supposed to be it's not all bad. They've lost once in 3 months or something like that. But yeah, maybe it's my natural Eeyore nature came through a little bit too much there. But much more happy news to report here today. I'm speaking to Alex, not only after the weekend's 1-0 win against Lincoln, but after last night's 2-1 victory against Stevenage, which really have put Birmingham City well and truly on the road to promotion again. Alex, quick thoughts about last night before we dive into some specifics?
On the face of it, the win machine rolls on, doesn't it? 2 wins after that Bolton game answered that question in the perfect way. They were actually really good in the first half against Stevenage without creating a lot of clear-cut chances, because Stevenage are a very, very good defensive side. I noticed that when Blues played them away in the Virtue as well. They're one of the most impressive teams defensively I've seen this season. And again, they were fairly solid last night as well. So Blues didn't create lots, but they got into some really good positions and worked some decent chances. Deservedly ahead at half-time. Got the second goal their first half play deserved right after the restart. And then it was just plain sailing from there, really. And then the only kind of surprise was that Stevenage managed to get a goal back in injury time that I suppose added a little bit of jeopardy for the final 10 seconds of the match or whatever when kickoff happened. But it was always going to end in 3 points of Blues, and deservedly so, really.
Excuse me. Yeah, that is as far as the jeopardy went, though, wasn't it? I was just going to bring up that word because it was very, very controlled, very, very comfortable. And in that first half, yeah, maybe Blues could have gone in with a couple of goals. They didn't really open up Stevenage that much. And as you say, it wasn't massively dissimilar to the Virtue Trophy game at their place, where Blues are very comfortable, but they are a tough nut to unpick, aren't they, to butcher a few metaphors in there. Yeah, it was over by the second goal, though, wasn't it, really? Thoughts on the penalty? Was it kind or no?
I feel like Blues have had some kind penalties this season. I'll be honest there. I mean, I think back over the Christmas period, and there were a couple against Bristol Rovers and Burton Albion. There was one where I think Keshi Anderson was backing into his defender, and the defenders won the header and got over the back of him, and the refs give it a penalty. We never see penalties for that. I think it was a penalty on Samstead. He's pulled him back, and Chris Davies said afterwards that he thought it might have been a red card. I'm not sure I'd go that far. Because I'm not sure would Samstead have got there before the goalkeeper? I'm not 100% sure on that. But it was a penalty in my eyes. And, we might come on to the referee. I felt like the referee was quite bad, particularly in the second half. I felt like he really lost control of the game when he didn't have to. It wasn't that, there wasn't that much to referee. But yeah, I thought it was a penalty.
Yeah, I wasn't sure it was a penalty. But like Chris Davies, I think once the referee's pointed to the spot and decided that is a foul, I do think there's a case to be say, well, he's the last man that's committed a foul and prevented a goal-scoring opportunity. I thought Samstead looked in control of that for me. And, I in many ways, I would rather he'd have gone on and scored a goal, because for his part in the play and his overall performance, he deserved that. But yeah, it was another good penalty from Kieran Dale. We'll come on to that. I guess the thing that caught my eye was Peck's first goal, almost like Chris Davies spoke about Peck not scoring a goal all season on Saturday, and then suddenly, as if ordered to go out and score a goal, he does just that. He could have. He looked. Do you think it was a case of my manager said it, so therefore I need to try it? Because he did seem to have a little bit of urgency around the box and to be getting into those sort of shooting positions a little bit more last night, I thought.
Maybe he's just that good that he can flick a switch and score a goal.
Why doesn't he? Why doesn't he do it every game?
There was one first half, wasn't there, where Awarta's picked up a ball in midfield and Peck's made the run and he's picked him out and the touch is just poor, but that was a chance.
It's his worst touch of the season, that, isn't it? Yeah. He's let it bounce up and hit him in the groin, which is something I'd do. It was a great pass, and it was an uncharacteristically poor touch there because, as you say, he was pretty much clean through, albeit just to the side of the goal.
Yeah, so like you say, bro, I think there probably is more of an effort to get into those positions. I mean, we're almost at the end of the season now, and for Peck to go a whole season without scoring for the quality of player that he is in League One would be, I don't want to use the word embarrassing, but it'd be, a strange statistic that he'd have to kind of explain to himself, really, at the end of a season. So thankfully he's got one. It was an excellent goal. Right foot onto left foot, a two-touch finish, really good finish with weaker left foot, which I'm not sure is particularly weak because some of his best efforts this season have come with his left foot. Good awareness by Alfie May as well, to be fair, who'd not long come on to rather than go for the shot the second time to set up Peck and realise that was the best option. So it was a really, really nice finish.
We will come on to Alfie May in a bit because we've had some takes and questions, and one of which is about Alfie May. I thought Alfie's sort of 40-minute cameo was probably as good as we've seen him for a few games, didn't you? He made real impact and made some good choices, albeit when he had his big moment, he tried to lift it over the keeper and lifted it over the Tilton virtually, didn't he?
Yeah, I thought his combinations are really good. We criticised he touched quite a lot on the way he's linked up recently, but I thought he was actually really good at that part of the game. And Blues looked maybe more cohesive going forward with him in the front four, I think. And it didn't seem to take too much away from Stansfield, putting him over to the left either, which hasn't always been the case. I think Stansfield's impact off the left has been significantly reduced compared to when he's been the striker. So it worked quite well. And like you say, when he got into that position, when he got, I think it was a bit of a gift, wasn't it? The chance that he got.
It was a header in field from a defender into the box from a defender. Yeah.
He's gone for the finish that most strikers do go for in that position and just completely overcooked it. I thought looking at it, maybe he could have, in Stansfield had those 2 goals in January or early February when he's kind of the goalkeeper's rushing out and he's not giving him time to set and he's just flicked it into the corner. I thought maybe he could have done that because Cooper Murphy was racing out towards him. But yeah, he's clearly a player out of form in front of goal who desperately needs one. But the key thing for me is that he still seems to be really enjoying playing for the team. You saw the way he celebrated that Peck goal. And that's what I would say about him this season. He hasn't always been the best player for Blues, but he's been a really good kind of clubman.
He looked really, really pleased and really happy to have, been part of something that had gone quite well. Speaking of clubman, I mean, Alon Samstead, talk me through his evening because I'm right in saying that he didn't realise he was going to actually be playing until quite late before the game.
Yeah, so I asked him just kind of out of interest, and he said he found out he was going to be playing at 4 p.m. Which is very, very late. And, I made that point to him. He said, yeah, it is. But, kind of I've done all the prep, haven't I? So it's, you've got to be professional, ready for those moments.
Presumably Gardner Hickman was penciled into play right back, was he?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe Chris Davies said that he picked up a knock from the Lincoln game. So you'd presume they would have known. Maybe Davies just named the team late on this occasion. Sometimes managers do that, don't they? So I'm not too sure on on how that kind of came about. But for Samstead to, he's been left out of squads more often than he's been in them recently, hasn't he? So for him to come in completely from the cold, having not even been on the bench at the weekend, and to play like that, because he played that right back role. I'm not saying exactly like Laird does because he hasn't got the explosiveness and the athleticism of Laird, but he played it as similar to Laird as possible, really, with his skill set. I thought he did really well. Offered maybe a little bit kind of more going inside as well. He made some really good runs through the middle, which Laird doesn't often do. So I was really impressed, and it kind of makes me think that if Chris Davies does want to go down the route of having a right back who plays high and wide, which has been the preference most of this season, then Alfie Samstead is your man while Ethan Laird's out.
Yeah, indeed. And it also makes you feel a little bit better about the transfer that Blues have, I don't know, been negotiated into a position that they've had to sign Samstead. Is that a kind way of saying it or an unkind way of saying it? Obviously, Samstead, we knew in the build up to this game that Blues had triggered a clause to mean Samstead would be joining in the summer. Samstead confirmed that to you last night, didn't he? And maybe we all feel a little bit better about the fact that he's not just sort of Blues haven't been bounced into it. He could actually be a player next season.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Blues signed the agreement, didn't they, for that clause to be included in the contract? So they obviously had that in mind long term, didn't they?
Yeah, the clause being that if they stayed in League One, they would end up signing him. Presumably, their relegation fears weren't too pronounced when they were negotiating that up. So that's a fair.
And they signed Samstead because they know that Ethan Laird doesn't have the perfect injury record. Does he? He's not always going to be available, and it's been unfortunate for Samstead this season because he maybe would have started, when Laird got injured in August, but he came back from international duty with a sickness bug, and then Taylor Gardner-Hickman trained in the build-up to that game against Wrexham, got himself in the team at right back and played really well for probably a period of about 2 months before Laird came back. And then when Chris Davies decided to take Laird out of the team for the second time after that Shrewsbury game, he obviously wanted to get Ben Davies in the team and didn't want to lose Christian Bielik. So Bielik ends up going at right back. The system changes slightly again. Samstead's your odd one out. So he's been very unlucky, I think, in terms of injuries, illness, and then selection. And obviously he did have that injury as well after international duty in November. So he wouldn't have been available to take that role initially from Laird anyway. So he's been very unlucky in his time at Blues and has had to wait an awful long time. And while he's been out, 3 players have effectively gone ahead of him, haven't they? The right back role. Yeah. And Laird has been absolutely exceptional. And there'd be no question that if Laird was fit now, he would play ahead of Samstead. But for him to have this chance now, it might only be for one more game if Laird is back after the international break. But he's got a chance, and he's proved himself in that game against Stevenage that he's more than capable of playing in this team in the way that Chris Davies wants. So, fair play to him, and hopefully he does get more minutes between now and the end of the season.
He's managed himself really well, hasn't he? Because, it could be very easy to be an energy sap if, your big move isn't going as you'd like it. But, we spoke about it the other day. He's probably done as much sort of hosting as he has playing for Blues, hasn't he, during matches at St Andrews. But his demeanour and his around the stadium and his sort of presence around the training ground, he's been a credit to himself, hasn't he?
He has, yeah.
How was he when you interviewed him last night? Sorry.
Yeah, he's one of the smiliest people around the place. Always really friendly. I've interviewed him twice now, I think. Maybe once in January, and again he was really nice then. And again, honest about kind of the situation that he's found himself in. He admitted that it's been an uphill battle at Blues this season because of things that have got in his way, the illness, injury that I mentioned earlier. Yeah. And then seems quite content where he is. Seems quite happy in the area. He mentioned, I asked him whether he's happy in Birmingham. He mentioned about Willem's presence being really important. Obviously, childhood friends know each other very well, and those two, whenever you see one of them at the training ground, you can guarantee the other one's not far behind. They're always together. So that's nice for him. Obviously, that would have been nice while he's been out of the team and not playing to have that support from Willemson. And yeah, he was really good, open and honest. And then obviously probably too open and honest for the liking of the Blues media team, because when I asked him, whether it would be a permanent move come the end of the season, he just said yes. So he wasn't exactly hiding much. But yeah, he's a nice guy, and he's one of these players that you just hope does well.
Is it slightly odd that obviously I think Twente announced it, didn't they? And Samstead's announced it. It was all over the Dutch press, and has anyone from Blues said anything about confirming it other than Alphonse? I know Blues haven't said anything officially, but has Davies acknowledged it?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't actually. And it's one of those, you probably wouldn't expect Chris Davies to acknowledge a transfer until it's kind of there, and being announced by the club. Probably one to put to him at some stage actually, and see if we can get it out of him. I don't think I will for a second, but we can try.
I don't know whether they'll get the toothpaste back in the tube on this one, I have to say. But there we go. That's not really our problem. Should we look at the bigger picture? It's a very nice picture, isn't it? Blues are now on 82 points. They raced through the 70s at breakneck speed. I guess that's as a result of having so many games so close together. Wrexham lost last night at Reading. Blues are now 14 points clear of Wycombe after 35 games, so they've got 11 to go. Points to guarantee promotion, Alex. What are we down to now?
17, and that's providing that Wycombe and Wrexham win their remaining games, which obviously isn't going to happen.
It can't happen because they play each other.
Oh, fantastic! So it's even less.
No, I think it is 17, but
Wycombe do have a game extra than Wrexham as well, don't they? So yeah. Interestingly, 82 points. We've talked about 90, haven't we? So it's effectively 8 points. I think 90 points has got you up in automatics in 9 of the last 10 League One seasons. Only that 22-23 season being the anomaly where Sheffield Wednesday finished third on 96, I think. So, I'm looking at 90 points. But then again, when Blues get there, which they will, you don't want them to take their foot off the gas, and I'm sure they won't because they'll have that points record in sight.
And the foundation stone has been the home form, hasn't it? We are now 19 games into the 23 home league games, and Blues are yet to taste defeat. What's the secret recipe at home?
I don't know, Brian. I'm feeling quite smug because when we did our predictions at the start of the season, was it a left field prediction was that Blues are going to the league season and beaten at home. 4 games to go against Shrewsbury, Barnsley, Crawley and Mansfield. The only one of those teams that are particularly good away from home is Barnsley, who actually are very good away from home. They're just below Blues in the away league table. But I think just the dominance on the ball, they suffocate teams at home. They don't concede many goals at all at home. I think it might be 7 in the league. So, combine that with an ability to score goals, which they obviously have, and great quality in forward areas, which got better in January with the signing of Kieran Dowell, who's been absolutely key in recent weeks. Recipe for success right there.
You don't need a second invitation to pat yourself on the back, do you? I'm almost in this situation now where I want Mark Roberts to come and score a late winner for Barnsley, just so, obviously with Blues promoted, just so you can't claim it. But yeah, you are right, and it has been the dominance of the ball, isn't it? They've just been in absolute control, and for most of this season at home, I can only think of 2 or 3 occasions where you thought, the opposition are on top here. Blues aren't looking very comfortable, and it's felt like the last couple of games, the Lincoln and Stevenage games, it feels like we've watched those quite a number of times, doesn't it? With Blues dominating the ball, not creating bushels of chances, but the word we used at the top of the episode was jeopardy, and there not being too much jeopardy.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of those games in December when Blues were just playing the likes of Bristol Rovers, Burton Albion at home. They seemed to win every game 2-0. And again, last night would have been 2-0 had it not been for that late consolation goal that Stevenage probably didn't deserve. So, a lot of the games have been similar. There is going to be more jeopardy next season in the Championship. And that is part of the reason why I'm looking forward to it so much, getting back into that league, because Blues aren't going to have it all their own way at times. They're going to have to probably be better on the counter attack because they're not always going to have 60-70% of the ball. When they go to places like Norwich, they're probably going to have to settle for 40, maybe 50 at best. So there's got to be more strings to their bow. I'm not saying they haven't had that this season. We just haven't really had a chance to see it, have we?
Yeah, indeed. It doesn't fill you with horror, does it, or with dread, because the defensive shape is so good. So that, I think if this Blues team do have an abiding quality, it's the shape, isn't it, and the preparation and how how good they are, and they all know the machine functions both with and without the ball. So yeah, it doesn't terrify me particularly, the prospect of having less ball. I suppose the risk you run is, there's a greater quality of player in the Championship, and as Blues have benefited from a lot this season, you can be well in a game, then there's a moment, isn't there? A technically good player does something that you really can't defend against, and I guess that will be the big threat next season. But you certainly don't see them, being open particularly or unstable at the back at all. Let's move on to some takes. I had a lot of takes. We've picked a lot on sort of similar themes, but picked a couple. One from Matt here said, I generally thought for 60 minutes that might be our most complete performance. Having direct runners from both sides helped us play so much better, especially attacking wise. Clear we missed one on the right against Lincoln. Samstead or Laird have to be the right back from now on. So, yeah, Matt's referring to the width, isn't he? Hansen was the width on the left, and last night it was Samstead on the right. Just thinking, who played on the right? Was it Gardner Hickman that played on the right against Lincoln?
Yeah, he was right winger, wasn't he? With Davies at right back.
That's right. Yeah, so more natural width. It's a good take from Matt, that, isn't it? And I think if you look back to what Blues were in the first sort of 10 games, it was very much the width on the left and the right. It was Hansen and Laird, wasn't it? Last night, Hansen and Samstead.
Yeah, 100%. And the key probably tweak in the last couple of months we've seen is the kind of long range passes from all sides. Blues have been a little bit more direct, and last night he was hitting them left, right, and centre to Hansen and to Samstead. So that's an essential part of the way Blues set up now, and it gives them kind of that different dimension. So yeah, really good. I still think it's probably more effective with Laird and Anderson as the providing that width, but they need options because those two players have had injury issues. So Samstead did very well, and Hansen actually has come back into the team and done okay as well. I thought maybe could have got in the box a little bit more last night, but that's always been a bit of a criticism in him from me. But yeah, I thought he was good on the ball and effective, and combined well with Cochrane and Peck when he drifted over there.
I've been a bit of a Hansen doubter for most of this season, to be honest with you. But since he's come back from injury this time, there have been a couple of things where I've thought, I can see that. He's looked a bit more confident. I say this every episode, so at the risk of repeating myself, he does try and go outside his man sometimes as well. It goes both ways. And I thought last night, again was encouraging. I was quite surprised to see him subbed, actually, weren't you?
Yes, yeah.
Is that just a case of not following up?
No, it wasn't. I thought it might be, but it wasn't. Chris Davies said he felt his calf again. So you'd hope it's not another injury because he's had 2 injuries this season and both have been 2 months, haven't they? So you wouldn't want it to wipe out the rest of his season, but hopefully it is just a precaution that, like Chris Davies said it was.
Yeah, indeed. Right, okay. You can only have so much conviction about a player that breaks down every 10 games, can't you? So hopefully that won't be so bad. Dave has said, is it just Blues who can be 14 points clear in a Wembley final, unbeaten at home, with 25 wins out of 35 games, yet still the players and manager get loads of stick-off fans on social media? Thor is about the 6th player this season who has become the whipping boy. Thoughts on that? I've got a few thoughts on that, but you go first.
To be fair, we've had a bit of a pop at Thor in recent weeks, haven't we? And I do think some of the criticism is justified because his form has really tailed off in the second half of the season after we saw how brilliant he was between September and November. He's probably Blues' most productive attacking player during that period. And he just hasn't been the same player since. I don't think he's registered a goal or assist in a league game since Wigan, when he scored on the 4th of January. So, for a player of his ability, he's got to do better than that, hasn't he? But yeah, I think he was actually better against Stevenage in the second half. I was quite disappointed first half, but I thought he was really good second half. A couple of really nice nutmegs, which again is what you expect from him, that kind of entertainment and wow factor, and some really decent passes and invention going forward. So hopefully it is a sign that he's turning the corner a little bit.
Yeah, there were some bright moments. I don't like to think of it as we've had a pop at him. I like to think that we've been relatively fair in our criticism of his performances. I'm sort of characterised as a bit of a Thor stan, and have been questioned about my view of his most recent performances, and I think we've been saying for a while now that it's not been as good as it was at the start of the season. Have seen one or two really eye-catching moments of skill, but then again last night, now it was offside, but there was that headed chance. He didn't know it was offside when he makes such a meek contact, doesn't he, of a header, sort of, what was he, 8 yards from goal? Tell me he knew the flag was up and he didn't really didn't really try and score with that header.
I think we need to just forget that a 6'4" player should be good at heading. We need to kind of get out of that mindset, I think, Brian, because he's clearly not, and he's not going to score many headers, if any. So yeah.
Right, I'll move on. Let's take Dave's wider point. Obviously, everything's going hunky-dory in terms of results. Yet there is social media criticism, clearly based on performances, because no one can quibble about the results, can they? My reaction to that is social media is what it is. It's a fleet. People commenting on social media are, making observations in fleeting moments when maybe they might feel differently in 30 seconds time or something like that. The only barometer, the reliable barometer that we can take is the temperature and the noise and the attitude inside the stadium. And it's uniformly positive, isn't it? Pretty much everyone who comes off gets a standing ovation. Chris Davies gets serenaded pretty much every game, especially when Bielik is at the back and May is in attack. So yeah, I don't. What are your thoughts about the grumbles or the criticism, or however you want to describe it?
Might need to tweak that song a little bit, to be honest, based on the last couple of months, to be fair.
Who are we saying's at the back then? Clara
at the back, Stansfield in attack. It's got to be, hasn't it, at some stage? I
would say so.
For longevity of the song, I think. It's difficult, isn't it? And like you say, Brian, the inside the ground is the best barometer. And Blues fans have voted with their feet this season in that every game has been a sellout, pretty much, hasn't it? I think last night was around the 25k mark, and that's a low attendance of losing a league game this season. A rearranged fixture against Stevenage on a Tuesday night, probably not the most attractive fixture the League One calendar has to offer, and still 25,000, which is a bigger attendance than any other League One club has got in the entirety of this season. So I think that speaks volumes. Maybe some fans online might be frustrated that there is a lot of same games where Blues just kind of turn up, score a couple of goals, game's done, manage the match and take the 3 points. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'd rather do that 25, 30 times a season and get promoted than do it, than win 3 games 10-0, and play the best football that St Andrews has ever seen. I think Blues do generally play quite good football, but I do think they play pragmatic, possession-based football, and it's a results-driven style, isn't it? And this season has been, nothing but successful. So I don't think we can complain too much.
No, and I have to say, I think, when it's all said and done, we'll all look back at this as a really impressive season, which we remember quite fondly, won't we? Birmingham City expected to win football matches, and it's been decades since you can say Birmingham City have been expected to win football matches every game. So social media, it's a thing, it's out there, but it's not something that I don't think we should get too distracted by, Dave, is my view. But yeah, some questions. Callum has said, can you see Lee Myung-jae ever making an appearance for Blues, or is Cochrane just going to be run into the ground till the end of the season? It's curious, isn't it? Because Cochrane's had a dip in form. I think the last couple of games he's been better again, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But there was a dip in form, and you're thinking, well, this lad needs taking out.
Yeah, he looked shot at Bolton, didn't he? Then again, that was clearly a bad game for everyone, but Cochrane did look quite jaded and tired at Bolton. So I thought naturally he would give Myung-jae Lee a go in the next game, but no, he stuck with his man. And Cochrane, I think, is on 43 games this season, so he probably is going to get to 50, isn't he? Which is quite the achievement. Not many players go through a season and play 50 games, so credit to him and the medical staff in the way that they've kind of held his body together, because I don't think any other Blues player, or maybe one or two, maybe Clara, have played at the level of minutes or the amount of minutes that Cochrane has this season. I do think Myung-jae Lee is going to get a chance. I think when the league is done and dusted, and we do expect that to be early to mid-April, I think there's going to have to be a couple of games where he gets in, isn't there, surely?
Yeah, just to pick up on your point, yeah, Clara is the only outfield player to have played more minutes than Cochrane, but obviously he doesn't do anything like the distances in running that Cochrane does. Do you think that's a slight danger to about the record, achieving the records and breaking the records. That if Blues are safe with, well, not safe. There's decades. There's decades of hard-baked cynicism, isn't there? If Blues are up with 6 or 7 games to spare, I think there's a danger that it goes all a bit beachy, and you end up playing teams that really, really need to win, whereas you just quite fancy winning.
Maybe I don't know. I don't think Chris Davies has got it in him, and that's why I don't think he's going to make loads of changes when those games arrive. I think people like Grant Hanley I could see coming into the 11. I think he'll get minutes when that happens. I don't know how it works with medals anymore. Don't the club get a set number of medals and then they kind of give them out themselves, rather than back in the day it was you had to play 10 league games to get a medal, didn't you?
Generally that was the case. I generally don't know what it is now.
Yeah, so I'm sure Lee Myung-jae will get a medal if he does feature, but I think he will. I don't think it will become too beachy, because Chris Davies is still going to be absolutely screaming at all of his players on the sideline, on the touchline, if they make any kind of mistake, isn't he? Or Emil Hansen doesn't follow in across from the right hand side at the back post and be where he should be. Chris Davies isn't going to let him. I think, oh, fair play, we've won the league, that's fine, you can get away with that now. He's going to be screaming at him still. So there'll obviously be a natural let up, but I don't think there's going to be too much of a let up. I still think they're going to be good in for that points record.
Yeah, indeed. Myung-jae Lee, hopefully at some point, Callum, is about all we can say on that. Miles has asked, and we promised some Alfie May chats, is May good enough to play in the Championship? We've been kicking this idea around when we've been at games together for most of this season, haven't we? Mm-hmm. Throw a few variables into the equation there. I suppose you would start by saying that no football manager has tried to. He hasn't played in the Championship yet, so the truth of the matter is we don't know. I think Blues tried to sign him when they were in the Championship, so I'm sure he has had Championship offers. But what do you reckon?
My opinion has probably changed on this subject throughout the season. I think in August I was in the Alfie May fan club and was thinking, I can't believe no one's ever given this guy a chance to play in the Championship.
Yeah.
And gradually throughout the season, his form's dipped, and he has looked more. I think at the start of the season we would have said he's a 31-year-old who's lightly raced, but he has looked a little bit more worn out towards the end of the season. Again, he's played like 40 odd games, hasn't he? And he works tirelessly. He really does set the tone for the press when he plays up front. I don't think he presses as well as Stansfield, but you wouldn't expect that given that he's 9 years older than Stansfield. And Stansfield has kind of those unique Premier League athletic qualities. But I think he's been a really good option throughout the season. I think he's had a good season when you consider the kind of the disruption that he had in terms of changing his position, going into a position as a number 10 that he clearly wasn't overly comfortable with, for the good of Stansfield, really. Then he's moved back into the 9 and he hasn't really scored enough, which has led to him losing his place in the 11. I don't see him being a starter for Blues between now and the end of the season. I think next season he's definitely not going to be a starter for Blues, 100%. I think they'll probably put another body or two between him and being a starter. So he could end up being third or fourth choice striker. But I know he really wants to play in the Championship. I know he really wants a chance to play in the Championship. So maybe he'll have 2 years left in his contract. Maybe he'll stick it out and try and fight for his place. I don't see him getting many chances, to be honest. That's where I sit now. I think the Bolton game and how kind of he struggled to make any kind of impact against decent centre-backs in this league kind of just put an extra doubt in my mind, I think, because, Championship centre-halves are way, way better than what we've seen in League One. And I'm not sure he would trouble them enough outside, maybe getting the odd chance, because obviously he's got that knack of being in the right place at the right time.
The tide's going against him at the moment, I think. Was it Miles' question? The tide's going against him for me, Miles, I think, at the moment. I think the only way he can turn that tide is if he can get 4 or 5 more goals towards the end of the season and get his confidence back up. because he does look like a bit of a confidence player. You know, you can sort of see it in his, and that's not a criticism, because there's probably not a player that's played football that's impervious to bad form or missed chances or things going against them on the pitch, and they're the same player week in, week out. But I do think Alfie May looks different when he knows he's going to get 3 or 4 chances a game and stick 1 or 2 away. I'd like to see that happen. But in the Championship, Jay Stansfield starts. Lyndon Dykes will presumably be back at some point in the not too distant future to play in the Championship as well. They will look at striking options. I'm absolutely convinced that they will. If May plays, I'll be surprised. I don't think he'll make 10 starts. Do you?
No. I wouldn't see him as a starter. I think maybe as a sub, if you've got the 9 subs in the Championship, maybe he could play that role. But I just don't see him getting many minutes if he stays next season.
Yeah, indeed. It's at the moment, the Championship is looking like it's going to be a bit of an uphill struggle for Alfie, but hopefully that's not the case. Birmingham City Stato. What's the situation with the penalty kicks? Are we just mixing it up, or is Stansfield low on confidence after missing his last spot kick against Cambridge? Dowell's penalties have been good, but it's a bit of a strange situation. We've only missed 1 penalty all season. Chris Davies says that he's happy for them to have a negotiation on the penalty spot, isn't he? That strikes me as
they're not fighting.
it strikes me as a little bit odd. And when we came away from the Lincoln match, I thought, they've made that decision because Jay Stansfield was in the Fulham Academy with, was it George Wickens, the Lincoln goalkeeper. So you can think, maybe Stansfield is worried that having trained with Wickens so much that he'll sort of be able to second guess him a little bit. So I quite expected him to be on penalties again last night, and clearly he wasn't. What insight can you offer?
Yeah, it's very strange, wasn't it? I still think he'll take penalties at some stage. I think, maybe Chris Davies will have seen Kieran Dowell's penalty against Lincoln and thought, that's an outstanding penalty. That's probably the best penalty we've taken this season.
Which it probably is, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Because let's face it, some of Stansfield's haven't been that convincing. So Dowell's taken an excellent penalty. Chris Davies has probably seen it and thought, I'm happy for him to take penalties. It's clear that Stansfield is the penalty taker, and now Chris Davies is leaving it up to him as to whether he passes up the opportunity and gives the ball to Dowell. I thought, because Dowell picked the ball up against. I'm getting my Lincolns and Stevenage mixed up now. Stevenage, that he was going to then do what they've done, what Stansfield has done with Alfie May previously, and pass the ball to Stansfield, and he would come. But it just didn't happen, did it? So maybe that was them again putting the goalkeeper off his stride a little bit, and just playing mind games. It's good that Blues have got 2 penalty takers. I think Stansfield will take penalties again. I actually sat down with him at the training ground last week and was talking to him about kind of the goals he's got and chasing the golden boot, and he suggested, it's fantastic that he's got 20 goals. Maybe now he can go and get 30, and obviously he would like to challenge for the golden boot as well. So, he's probably not going to want to pass up too many penalties if he is chasing the golden boot. But again, they've both been pressure penalties, haven't they? The last 2 Blues have had, and Dowell has shown that he can handle that pressure and is an excellent dead ball striker.
I'm wondering. I don't actually believe this is the case, but I wonder if having penalty practice in live situations just ahead of the Virtue Cup Trophy final, just in case it goes to penalties, and Dowell's had one, and May's taken a live penalty, hasn't he?
You're now saying League One's become that easy that they're training.
No, I don't believe it. No. Presumably Jay's on a goal bonus, and presumably he'll get something if he finishes with the League One Golden Boot as well. So it's very generous. Let's see. But of the 2, you would, if I am picking a Birmingham City player to take a penalty to save my life, it's Kieran Dowell at the moment, I've got to say.
Yeah. The 2 penalties have been excellent, haven't they? So there's no reason why it shouldn't continue. I'm very comfortable with both of them taking pens.
Blues breakdown. Hello, Ben. Blues have used 26 different combinations of the front four this season in the league and only managed to put the same front four out in consecutive games on just 6 occasions. How much do you think this has contributed to what some perceive as a somewhat disjointed attack? Let's start with the disjointed attack bit. Fair comment, criticism, point?
That's a stat only Ben can come up with. That is.
Yeah, it's very Blues breakdown, that stat, isn't it? Yeah.
I agree to an extent. The consistency clearly has been a bit of an issue. So what's the best front four, Brian? What's been the best front four Blues have had this season? Where you felt who would you be picking?
We're picking now. Everyone's fit.
Yeah, everyone's fit.
So it's Stansfield up front, isn't it?
Yeah.
Keshy Anderson's in it.
Yeah.
Dowell now, I would say. If you're, are we then looking for a left or a right winger?
You're looking probably for a right winger or a 10, aren't you? Because Dowell could play both. I'm probably putting Willem in there still.
No one settled the argument, have they?
No, that's the thing.
Yeah. So if the front four, we've got 3 of the front four: Anderson, Dowell, and Stansfield, which leaves us a choice between Willemson, Hansen. I mean, Scott Wright's injured. Scott Wright's injured, but Wright and Dykes who's injured. No. Yeah, it's Alfie. Yeah, yeah. Pick your fourth one.
I'm probably going Willemson, based on what he did in 2 months before Christmas. I think.
Right.
And there were signs when it was against Cambridge that when him and Dowell were on the same wavelength that it looked very good.
So and Anderson on the left and
Willem in the 10.
Willem on the 10 and Dowell sort of linking up on the right with Laird, presumably. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the front four. I think disjointed is fair, to be honest. Although disjointed sort of suggests that they're not finding each other, they do find each other, just maybe not quickly enough. Maybe laboured would be a better adjective to describe the attack at times.
The only time this season where I've watched Blues and thought they've got a front four that are playing together was that Cambridge game. They were really fluid together, the 4 of them, the 4 that we've mentioned.
Cambridge were absolutely
terrible.
wretched, weren't they?
Yeah, they were absolutely awful. So it's probably not really a fair kind of a good barometer to look at. But that's the only game where I think the front four have been in sync. I look at there's been plenty of other time this season when you've probably had 2 of the front four playing really well and combined together, like Anderson and Stansfield over Christmas were very effective together.
Yeah.
May at the start of the season with Anderson was pretty good as well. So yeah, I do agree that it has been disjointed. I don't think Chris Davies has been able to get 4 players playing perfectly together at any one time. And we all know that he would probably rather not make changes because he's not the sort, is he? So he's probably been frustrated by it as we have. Injuries has also played a huge part. The wide department has really suffered this season. I don't think he's had all 4 wingers or all 3 wingers now fit at the same time, has he? Because as soon as Anderson gets back, Wright gets injured. As soon as Anderson gets back this time, Hansen gets another injury. So they've had major issues in that department. It'd be interesting to see how many games those wide players have missed at various points. I think Hansen's probably got about 20 appearances. Wright has got 20. So again, they've both missed 27 games apiece. Anderson has probably missed maybe 10 to 15. So yeah, that's been a big issue. And probably when we talk about the structure and defensive solidity Blues have had this season, I think next season to do well in the Championship, they've probably got to be better going forward.
Yeah, I think what I'd do, Ben, is I'd reverse the scenario, having thought about it a little bit more now. And I'd say I don't think it's the changes that make the attack appear disjointed or laboured. I'd say it's the sort of the lack of convincing performance from the players when they've played that have meant there have been changes. If that makes sense. But yeah, it's an interesting point, and I do think most people would agree. And we go back to the social media grumbles, maybe that the attack isn't quite as clicking to the same degree as the defensive setup has been. And as you said there, Alex, that is something that will need addressing in the summer transfer window. Last one, let's move on. Gary, one player from League One you'd like Blues to sign for the Championship. Do you want to go first, Alex?
I was going to say you go first because you've come with a player that we both like.
Okay, I'll go first then. And it's a relatively recent one. It's Jordi Osei-Tutu, the winger from Bolton, who gave Blues a very, very difficult night a couple of Tuesdays, a week last Tuesday. Who was he up against as the right back?
Taylor Gardner-Hickman.
It was Taylor Gardner-Hickman, yeah, and it was. And, without going over old ground, again, he made Taylor Gardner-Hickman look like a midfield player playing right back at times, didn't he? So he was direct, he was quick, he was good on the ball. Him for me. Shall I do my other one as well before you okay. Go on? It's the Wrexham centre back, Max Cleworth. I suspect he might leapfrog the Championship if Wrexham don't go up. I wonder if someone. He might be on the sort of similar trajectory to James Hill, or trying to think of another centre back.
Aaron Cashin.
Yeah, another centre back who's sort of just gone straight into the Premier League. Maybe not with the view of starting every single game, but with someone who is clearly a level above. So those would be the two. I don't think Blues will get Cleworth, but as you said, Alex, left-sided centre half. They are hen's teeth, aren't they? So those would be my two, the two that have really caught my eye.
I like both. I like Richard Kone from Wickham, but that's kind of a late suggestion given that he's top of the League One scoring charts. I really like Ethan Galbraith of Leyton Orient. They've obviously tailed off in recent weeks, but I was impressed by him when Blues played Orient in August and he scored their goal that day. He was playing in midfield then. He's a midfielder, but he's played at right back for a good part of the season as well. I believe they rejected a good offer from Swansea for him in January. So you'd presume he's going to move on in the summer. Plays midfield or number 10. Can also, as he's shown, play wide as well. So he's a really good player. Really tidy. Would fit into the way that Blues play in terms of being possession-based and comfortable on the ball. Just a good player. And I'm sure he's going to be in the Championship next season. And maybe Blues could take him along their journey.
You can sort of see why he was... or tell that he's been in the United Academy, can't you? Because he does have that good pedigree and that quality on the ball. So, a few names there for you. Alex, thank you for your time on to Northampton. Thank everybody out there for listening. Please do leave a comment or hit like or hit subscribe. It does help. All that remains is a big keep right on from both of us.